significant step forward. And I would like to welcome our next guest, Moshe Lavi, the brother-in-law of one of the hostages who is still being held in Gaza. That is Omri Miran. Thank you so much for joining us again. It has now been almost 2 years that your brother-in-law has been held in Gaza. He will have spent another Yom Kippur away from his family this week. What do you think when you hear that Hamas has now agreed to part of this plan, saying that it's ready to release all hostages as part of a deal?
Thank you for having me tonight. I first want to send my condolences to the Jewish community in the UK for the murder of 2 Jews yesterday by a terrorist. To your question, it's been a roller coaster of a day. We did not expect to see Hamas response today, but it seems President Trump's forceful announcement earlier in the day compelled them to provide a response. We, as many of the families of hostages, see the response as a yes, but. So it's not a full agreement to President Trump's plan, as you outlined before the interview, but at the same time, it's one that provides a path possibly to find a resolution to end the conflict and bring home Omri and all the remaining 48 hostages. President Trump was quite clear that he sees this as a positive development, that he believes there is a gap, that there are gaps that can be breached. And I trust him and his administration to breach those gaps so that we can reunite with Omri as soon as possible.
And what would that look like exactly? As you say, it seems like where we stand now is future negotiations ahead. What would your message be to Mr. Trump?
My message to President Trump, and I'm expected to be in DC next week alongside my sister as part of the advocacy events around the sad anniversary of the October 7th atrocity. And our message there and tonight will be keep pressuring all stakeholders. First and foremost, Hamas and their accomplices. They need to understand they have no role to play in the future of Gaza, that they have to release all the hostages immediately, and that for the future of Palestinians in Gaza and for Israelis in Israel, Hamas has to leave the stage. And to the Israeli government, I want to make sure that it will continue to engage with the Israeli government in order to ensure that they reach an agreement with Hamas. It's going to be a difficult agreement to process, to digest as a country, but Israel is built on the ethos of redeeming our captives, of our social contract that binds us together. And I believe the Prime Minister will make the right call to prioritize the hostages, with the guarantees President Trump and the international community provide to Israel.
Now, tell me a little bit more about that. Some other families of hostages being held in Gaza have been highly critical of Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu. Do you think he will be able to abide by the points of this plan and to make the case for Israelis that it's the best way to get the hostages home?
I want to first and foremost explain to the viewers that those families who are critical, including myself, are first and foremost putting the onus on Hamas. They are the culprits, and they're the ones who needs to be held accountable and forced for a deal. There shouldn't be a deal in the first place because the hostages should be released immediately and unconditionally. But we are realistic and understand there is a deal. At the same time, we know that Prime Minister Netanyahu has a coalition that is problematic, to say the least. There are members of the radical right that have stated before that they're obstructing deals time and time again. Now I see that there is a moment where President Trump, who gave the Prime Minister a lot of space to reach an agreement and also engage with military pressure, successful military pressure on Hamas, to finally understand that the war needs to end and that the hostages must be released and prioritized. I think the Prime Minister will be able to explain to a public that overwhelmingly supports a deal, over 70% consistently wants a deal to release the hostages. And for his coalition, he has the safeguards for members of the opposition and the majority of the coalition that support a deal. I think he will be able to carry it through, and we will not allow it to be obstructed again. But I want to emphasize again, Hamas needs to be pressure first and foremost, and they need to agree to the framework President Trump laid out with the international community earlier this week. No buts and no delays.
Well, thank you so much for joining us today on BBC News. We've been speaking with Moshe Lavi, the brother-in-law of one of the hostages still held in Gaza, Omri Miran. We really appreciate your time.